Welcome back, children. We'll start a new chapter, chapter 5, David and Goliath, part 1. Unit 5, David and Goliath. Activity 1. Read the story silently, but we will read it loudly, okay? I'll read it and I'll make you understand the story. Now, this story has been divided into parts, part 1 and part 2. We will, in this entire video, we will first understand the entire story. Young David and Galois, part 1. Now children, I am switching off this camera of mine so that I can read the story properly with you all. Okay. Young David and Galois, part 1. There lived a young boy named David a long time ago. He had 3 older brothers, and they were all soldiers in the king's army. David also wanted to be a soldier, but his father wanted him to stay at home and look after his sheep. Now, David was a young boy, and he had 3 older brothers, and they were all part of king's army. He also wanted to be a part of king's army and he wanted to be a soldier, but his father wanted him to stay at home and look after his sheep. Every day David used to take his father's sheep into the hills. While the sheep are grazing, he looked for flat round stones along the river bank or besides the rocks and put them in his bag. Sometime a hungry lion or an angry bear come to kill the sheep, but David was not afraid. He used to take a stone from his bag and put it in his sling. He used to brandish the sling in a circle above the head, and the stone flew from it through the air and hit the wild beast between the eyes and kill it. Now, what used to happen whenever he used to take his father's sheep for grazing? Grazing मतलब क्या, चारा खाने ले जाता था. So whenever he used to take his father's sheep for grazing, what he used to do on the bank of the river or near the big stones, he used to search for a flat round stone. Now, what he used to do with those flat red stones, he used to put it in his bag, and whenever the lion or a hungry bear used to come to kill the sheep for their because they were hungry, what David used to do, he used to take a stone from his bag and he used to put in his sling. Now, what do we mean by word sling? Sling is a kind of weapon with which stones are thrown to enemies. So, sling is a kind of weapon in which a stone is been placed in such a way that if a person throws, it hits to the enemies. So, he used to put it in his sling, and he used to brandish the sling in a circle above the head and stone flew from it. Now, brandish means what? To wave something in the air in an aggressive or excited way. Now, what we do, we as an individual, when we take anything, suppose I take a jacket of mine and in excitement I take that jacket and put it on my head and move it in a circular motion above my head and I throw it on someone. Okay, this we do when we are very happy or when we are very excited about something. In the same way, what he used to place a stone in his sling and he used to brandish that sling above his head and put it on the hungry lion or bear. So, he used to target with this sling, brandishing it above his head, and in this way, let's move ahead. And the stone would flew and it would hit in between the eyes of the beast and it would kill them. Okay. So he used to brandish the sling in a circle above the head, and the stone flew from it through the air and hit the wild beast between the eyes and killed them. One day David's father told him that their enemies, the Philistines, were marching into Israel. He said, "Leave the ship, go and find your brother in the king's army. Give them these bags of flour and these letters before they go to fight." So what happened? One day his father said, "You leave these ships here, because the enemies, who were the enemies of the Israel, the Philistines, they were marching towards Israel." So he told him, leave their ships over here only and go and find your brother into the king's army and give them this bag of flour and the letter before they go for the fight. Okay, so this is what he had said. Marching means what? A soldier, they are coming a walk of soldiers with same speed and movement. Okay, so march means not a month of March. Over here the march means a walk of soldiers with the same speed and movement. Now we'll move to the next part of it. These activities we will be doing and discussing all the activities in our next video in some time. Okay, now let's continue the story. Young David and Goliath, part 2. David reached there where the battle was going on. The king's soldiers were afraid because a huge Philistine giant called Galois was standing in front of their camp and roaring in a loud voice like an angry lion. "I am Galois, I will destroy the land of Israel." Now what happened when David reached to the battlefield where the battle was going on? He saw all the king's soldiers were afraid because a huge Philistine giant, everyone was afraid because there was a huge Philistine giant and his name was Galois. He was standing in front of everyone and he was roaring in a loud voice, gurrana, chillana, zor se, in a loud voice, in an angry, like an angry lion. Okay, "I am Galois." He is saying his name, that I am Galois and I will destroy the land of Israel. So he said, "I will not spare any one of you and I will destroy the land of Israel. Send your best soldier to fight against me and I will kill them." So he is challenging Israel, then you send the best one of yours and I make sure that I will kill them. So he was so dangerous. Okay. The king of Israel was worried about this. So he made a promise to his soldiers. "The man who kills the giant Galois will marry my daughter and I will give him gold and jewels and he will be the richest man in Israel." So the king was worried that how he would be facing this situation, and then he made a promise to his soldiers that the one who kills the giant Galois, that soldier will be marrying his daughter and he will be giving him lot of gold and jewels and he will make that person a richest man in Israel. David heard it. He said, "I will kill Galois." The king and his brother laughed at him as David was only a boy. Finally, the king agreed. So when David said that he will go and he will kill this giant Galois, king as well as his brothers, they laughed at him, thinking how he would be able to kill such a giant Galois. He is just a small little boy. But somehow finally the king agreed to it. Okay, so we'll read it ahead. See, in this picture, can you see this giant Galois and that small tiny little boy David, and can you see in his hand a sling of his in which he has put the stone, and brandishing means what? See, he is moving with his hand that entire sling above his head. Okay, so this movement of moving of sling above the head is brandishing. something that we wave in the air in an aggressive or in an excited manner is known as brandish. Let's move ahead. The David took his bag of smooth round stone and his sling. He stood in front of the king's army and called the giant. When Galois heard David, his cruel eyes grew as red as fire. So what happened? David took his bag of a smooth round stone and his sling, and he stood in front of this Galois and he called the giant. So when this giant Galois heard the voice of David, his eyes become very red as fire. Galois angrily spoke, Israel has sent a boy to fight against me. I will cut off his head and give his body to the wild beast. Now Galois, in his angry voice, in his roaring voice, he said that Israel has sent a small little boy to fight against me. Then he also said that I will cut his head, his body, and body will be given to the wild beast. David was not afraid. He prayed quietly and he replied, I am only a boy, but I will kill you and give your body to the wild beast. He was not very afraid, but he prayed quietly and then he replied. He replied what? Though if you think that I am a boy, I will kill you and give your body to the wild beast. When Galois heard this word, he ran towards David to kill him. But David took a stone from his bag and put it in his sling. He whirled his sling above the head and the stone flew in the air. It hit between the eyes of Galois and he fell on the ground with a loud cry. David ran and took the giant sword and cut off his head with it. David brought the giant's head and put it at the king's feet. The king was pleased because David saved Israel. David married the princess and became the king of Israel. So what happened? So when David challenged the Galois, Galois heard his word and he ran towards him to kill him. But what David did? David has taken his sling, he placed the stone in it and he whirled his sling above the head. That means whirled means what? घुमाना. सिर के ऊपर उसने ऐसे घुमाना शुरू किया and he targeted that sling of his and the stone in between the eyes of this dangerous Galois. This way he used to do same with the angry or hungry lion and bear. In the same way he hit this stone in between two eyes of this giant Galois, and what happened when it hit between the eyes of this Galois? He fell on the ground with a loud cry. Then quickly David ran and he took the giant sword and cut off his head with it, because Galois didn't got the time. When that stone hit on in between his eyes, he didn't got time, and David took the advantage that he not getting a time. He took the sword and cut off his head. David brought the giant head and he put that head in the feet of the king. King was pleased. He was very happy that David has saved Israel from such a dangerous giant. Okay, and David got married with the princess and he became the king of Israel. So this is the entire story of young David and Galois, which has been divided into in three parts. So whirl means what? To turn around in circle. See, in keywords also it has been given to turn around in the circle. सर के ऊपर उसने गोल 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 उसकी जो स्लिंग थी वो घुमाना शुरू किया और गैलोइड की दो आंखों के बीच में उसने वो उसका फ्लैट स्टोन फेंक के मारा. Okay, so there are 2 to 3 new words that we can see in this entire chapter. Okay, in this part, in this video, we have understood the entire chapter. In the next part, we will do the activities. So let's move ahead and start doing the activities.